Oh, I thought that was an antenna. I'm sorry. Might have had this wrong. I still want to see who gets out. Hold on. Can I please do this? Doesn't look like he plans to get out if he's parked like that, because that vehicle right there cannot move. There's Secret Service there. You see the grill, the chrome grill? Imagine the Chevy emblem is the center of the clock. At the 2 o'clock position, in between the grill, you see very tiny white lights. And then again at the 4 o'clock position, and then at the 8 o'clock position, and at the 10 o'clock position. So there's 4 clear white lights inside the jump, the grill there. They also run down the runners down there at the side, down at the bottom. If you're not paying attention, if you're a soccer mom or something, you don't pay attention to these things, you're just cruising down the street and the whole thing lights up like a Christmas tree. All over. They even have them in the dash or the sun guard, the visors. They have them in the visors. This one's more trick because of the blacked out wheels. I'm a federal agent with attitude. Anyway, these chargers, there's a lot of chargers around here. You guys, they have I was down here, the worst I've ever seen is a couple weeks before I moved in. I come down here to sign paperwork. And I'm like, oh, fucking, I walk from the subway. I'm like, oh, they own the whole block and 2-3 blocks. They're parked it's like central right here. Here's for the incredulous, this is a patrol car for actual Homeland Security. You see the fender there above the blacked out wheels? It says Homeland Security. This is a real mild day in my mind. This is extremely mild. In fact, you'll see them in these Suburbans. Excuse me. And they'll be on, and they all wear suits, and they're in their laptop, doing work. They have a console and such in these. But one of the things is that we're very, very common is the Dodge Chargers. I think I've got that right, that's a Charger. And so I turned it on to see who steps out of the vehicle. But it looks like he has no intention of getting out of that car because he has that little car squished in. He ain't going nowhere. So it's Friday, December 20. I couldn't be happier. These are the days leading up to Christmas. Is the happiest thing ever. I don't know what that means. Let me guess. Are you saying that? There's maybe one or two that it's clear they went away for the holidays and then they leave their tree on. Like the whole place is dark except for their tree. I really appreciate that, man. This place kind of lacks a little Christmas spirit in my mind. Well, it's trash day. So anyway, I'm in my pajamas. I want to get this day started, but these are just your run-of-the-mill. And that's the thing. Okay, so the Homeland Security jump, that has a DC plate. A lot of these will have actually A lot of these undercovers will have like Maryland plates. And even Virginia, of course. But I'm just saying the best mix, okay, see that run-of-the-mill, like a Ford, I don't know what you call that, a Ford, that's the white SUV. Look at the antennas on the top. Yeah, it's just your run-of-the-mill. If you get assigned that vehicle, you're pretty bummed out. They got some black SUVs. Even that one is, I'd call that black SUV like second tier, second shelf. They have some that are parked over here. They're fly as shit. I'm like, fuck. They're really impressive stuff. Like 2025, right? So they're also mixed in there with some municipal workers. You see the red and white flag with the 3 stars on it? That's DC. On his door. Yeah, if you want to talk about inferiority complexes, that's what you have. So you have a variety of agencies in here. In fact, I went in there a couple years ago. I went in there, this building right here, to do my voter registration. I think I'm still registered at the in Chinatown. So. Well, let's make it. Can we please make this video worth a darn? I just got fired up here. Let's fire up a little bit. So, you guys want, I'll do okay, any good investor has certain keys they watch for, like Michael Burry looking for a bubble. He's looking for mortgage fraud indicators. He's looking for, well, I'm not going to go through the whole list. And I don't really know the whole list, but he's looking for key things. World history. Let me do this. College football. A lot of people don't know this. College football is a real hoot. They will, in the summer times or in the off season, they'll hold, you're welcome to come. It'll shock you. They will share their war secrets. You can come down to the University of Alabama. You go to the University of Oregon. You go wherever. And Chip Kelly and Nick Saban will explain exactly what they do. It's shocking. It is full-blown shocking. You're like, I don't know, fuck. It was a shock to me. Maybe not you, but, you know, being a fan for all these years. It would just tell you, give it away. I remember Nick Saban, and I'm not big on, I love football, but Nick Saban says, what I do, kind of my game is, so I think his great strength is defense, right? He's a defensive coordinator. That's where he came up from. And so sometimes for offense, they'll lean heavily on some, he says, yeah, even Chip Kelly, before he went head coach, he says, well, I don't know much about defense, which we know that's you being extremely modest, but and also that's good academic humility. I don't know much about defense, you know, but to understand offense, you got to understand defense. But Nick Saban said, it's on, he said, and I don't quote me, you know, don't plan your game plan on what, you know, but he says, I have to draw a double team here. I put a fucking mountain of a man right here. I got to draw a double team. Everything I do on this side of the ball hinges on drawing a double team here. That creates the inequities in the other side, in other parts of the field. That's what creates the holes on the line. If this fails, I really struggle. Chip Kelly will tell you, you know, what was his thing, you know? Well, he has they all have a grab bag of goodies, but you know, yeah, there's a game day commercial years ago, ESPN, where a clip was like, whoa, I put a guy right here. And that confuses and stresses the defense. And he created a new position called the taser position, where it kind of freezes the defense. They don't know what the fuck to do. On the defensive side of the ball, he puts a guy in motion and it kind of stops him. And I think one of the linebackers assigned I don't know whether they crash in or follow him, or it creates inequities. But you can go to these camps where they'll just tell you exactly what they think. This is what I'm watching for. When Michael Burry explaining to his investors, and you have to understand with the Michael Burry thing, his investors, yes, Michael Burry, what he did was heroic. His investors have a genuine claim that scared the living fucking shit out of us. You can't just predict the end of the world like that and put all our money in it. And for Michael Burry, what was his part was, he goes, it was an absolute certainty. My job is to invest your money and get you a return. I knew the economy was going to fall out of the bottom. So his investors had to wait for the end of the world from 2005 till 2007 and a half for all their money's tied up. It scared the living shit. So they're waiting. They're all, dying 1,000 deaths. You have to understand it. But for Michael Burry, his part was, it's an absolute certainty. It's like the Titanic going down. He says, you punctured 5 compartments. The Titanic can take 4 compartments. The 5th means it's going down. Do you understand that? And Michael Burry, one of the only people in the world, and we're talking one of the only people in the world saying, I am telling you the economy is going to crash. So he took $555 million of other people's money, he's a manager, and bet the house. And he just had to wait 2.5 years. Well, as investors, you have to understand his investors' position. Michael Burry's portrayed as a hero. Yes, it's heroic. Michael Burry lacked, it turned out, he's on a spectrum. He's a doctor, an MD, but he was on a spectrum of autism. He didn't exactly know how to convey. He said, my job is not sales. My job is to read the fucking market. And I read numbers like you read the Cat in the Hat. It's super easy for me. You might not get it, but I get it. And everybody's like, well, nobody else sees what you're seeing, man. So you have to understand there was a bit of a hiccup with Burry, and so I have some compassion with his investors that wanted to throw him off the building, But what Burry did, yes, that's horrifying and psychotic and very, very heroic when he's like, they asked him after it was all done, they said, what was your level of certainty this is going to, he goes, absolute. You can't get more certain than that. My level of certainty is absolute. And it came out exactly as he thought. So, yeah, he turned 555 million into 1.9 billion. So, but the point is, that's super scary stuff. Anyway, they will tell you, you go to these investor meetings, this is my thesis. This is what I do. This is how I see things. Chip Kelly will say, this is, and you go to a Chip Kelly seminar or a Nick Saban seminar, and you might go, I appreciate that, but you're playing the game upside down in my view. I like to do it this way. My view of good, clean, solid, strategic, whatever it is, whatever your fucking story is. Or maybe I'll take that. That's helpful. I'll take that little thing, But anyway, it's very like a democratic thing or egalitarian. They just tell you their secrets. And in fact, in war, well, you might not know this, in war, there's oftentimes people are proud to show you, this is what we do. The Germans are very proud to have other countries come and watch them on the battlefield. You're about to see something. Watch this. In the Civil War, the British and other countries came out to watch. They were very interested to see the South, if they needed to cut diplomatic relations or not. The South would fight like lions. They were terrifying. And everyone saw it, raised your hair and they were savage the way they fought. But they were continuing to keep diplomatic relations with a country, the Confederate States of America, which they weren't sure they were going to win or not. So, but you're welcome to come out and view and watch, and they're proud to say, now watch this maneuver. So America, what's happened a little bit with America is there's like this mystification, excuse me. Yeah, it's like, well, that belongs to me, or that, it's like the idea, was like democratizing. That's the idea with the internet, was to democratize information. You can decide for yourself now. Or the printing press. Well, now you don't need to go to the college and study. You can go You can read the shit for yourself. We now have the printed. Now all of it's democratized. All this information's online for you, but you still insist on spending $500,000 in an education. I submit you're not after the education, right? I say that with a great deal of fucking conviction. If you're after an education, I wouldn't be going to college, friend. That's not what you're doing, right? More something closer to the alumni network or something like that. Yeah, yet in a greedy way, because we're all trying to race to the top. It's like, I don't want to share what I have with you. I'm just, you're my neighbor and I don't want you getting up quick, faster. That's why I'm a big proponent of demystification, and you'd be surprised at the higher levels, they're in support of it too, Just ask Nick Saban, how do you thrash everyone's ass? Well, it goes like this, and they fail to adjust here, here, and here. And I'm going to continue doing that until they figure it the fuck out. Let me walk you through history. What are the keys for me? Not Nick Saban, Michael Burry's looking at real estate prices. They're starting to soar. Going not red hot, they're going white hot. Mortgage fraud is through the roof. You ain't seen that since the 30s, the last time, or the 20s or whenever. Last time there's a giant bubble. And they know that real estate's cyclical anyway. Every 7 to 10 years, you got a little bit of a bubble, boop, and you got to start over again, boop, boop. Well, every 70 years or something like that, who knows? But trying to read the market is a miserable life, and you're wasting your life. Deal with spiritual matters. God does not live in Manhattan. What are the keys that Justin Wright looks at? One of them is this here. So I think this is a Caravaggio. This is going to be, that's Father Abraham. You heard this song we talked about the other day. Father Abraham and many sons had Father Abraham. This is the great trouble in humanity. Jesus said, Abraham is going to be a thorn in your side. I told you, Abraham, I guess you could argue he's the first Jew. He said, I told you you're going to have a child with your wife Sarah, and she is going to, from that child, will be a great blessing for all of humanity. Here's Abraham. This is his son Isaac. He's about to slice his throat. This is the angel, I think, Gabriel. At the very last second, Jesus sends him down and said, whoa, stop. And you're looking at obedience there. That's radical obedience. Okay, I thought I was supposed to kill my son. Well, okay, what now? What are we doing? The Arabs will, I think, take very little issue with what I'm about to say. This is where it all happens. Abraham got tired of waiting. Sarah apparently was a smoke show in the Old Testament. Sarah she was old too at this time or whatever. Her beauty gave a great deal of difficulty around, anyway. But he gets tired of trying to get the old bag pregnant. She's not getting pregnant, she's barren. So they get tired of waiting, and so they come up with a plan he's very wealthy, crazy money, boatloads of cash. He's got servants. He said, I think she proposes the idea, just take your maidservant, Hagar, I think her name's Hagar, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. Dark olive skin, very beautiful. Get her pregnant, that'll be our son, we'll adopt him, and then all this money, all this practically a kingdom, all this, you'll have a son to give it to. This is the same thing that happened with King, the English king, Henry VIII. That's how you have a huge fracture. he was married to, what was her name? Anne Boleyn or something? I don't know what it was. I'm sorry. She couldn't get pregnant. Well, Jesus decides these matters, man. So he tries to divorce her. The Pope, the head of the church, he tries to get a divorce. The Pope says, I'm sorry, I can't do it. So we're talking world history here. King Henry VIII says, I'm going to start a new church because you didn't want to accept what the Lord had provided you. So that I can get a divorce, marry a new woman, get her pregnant, and I can have an heir. All my money is going to go to waste. Everything I've worked for is going to go to waste. King Henry VIII starts, I think, I'm a little hazy on that. All I know is Jesus said it couldn't have gone worse. It was I think it was more like it was the very last thing you want to happen. Created war, they're running from religious persecution at this point, We're going to start a new church with new doctrines, this and that. And all his courtiers, all the people, his assistants were, oh, that is inspired. They kept telling him. And that's what happens is the hangers-on. That's what happens in this town. The hangers-on with Joe Biden. Why did that happen? Well, because they profited, his hangers-on and the people in the inner circle profited by keeping the secret or attempting to keep the secret. That's why Abe Lincoln, Secretary of State, who in every other way it appears, his resume is so pristine, it worries me. Why would he also participate in that conspiracy to keep that he's the point where he's fucking practically retarded at that point. And it was clear yesterday in the reporting from the Wall Street Journal that Abe Lincoln was serving as a fucking attack dog for anybody Why? Because he's Secretary of State. It's practically more valuable than the vice presidency. So why does everyone participate in keeping a man who's probably, if he's not wearing diapers, he can hardly keep his dentures in his face? Why does that happen? Because everyone in the inner circle profits. So they kept telling King Henry VIII, oh, that is definitely from the Lord. You are inspired. Why? Because the king's court profits by going along with what, the patronages and shit like that. Well, we don't know a lot about royal life because over here it's a little different. But it's sort of the same thing. Abraham was told it's going to come from, so he he has intercourse with Hagar, olive skin Arab woman. Very, very beautiful. Their first son, his name is Ishmael. This is, in my view, just like Nick Saban says, I need to have a double team I need a nose guard that can pull a fucking double team. It starts there, friend. That's my game. You have yours. This is where I do mine. I look here. This is the trouble in the world. Ishmael and Isaac. Jesus shows up and says, friend, I told you it's going to come from Sarah. This is disobedience. He says, not only is this going to cost you a great deal, this will always, listen carefully, this will always be a thorn in the side of humanity, what you have done. At some point, his beautiful wife, Sarah, says, I can't stand Hagar anymore. I can't imagine the life in that house. I honestly can't imagine the rivalries. I can't imagine it. She finally said, because now Hagar sees herself as an unbelievably elevated position. There's no way that didn't happen. Hagar sees herself as, I'm kind of queen shit now because I nursed this beautiful baby boy who's prized in all the land of fucking Canaan or Ur. So I think it's in Iraq, southern Baghdad. Finally, Sarah says, I can't take enough. Send her to fight. That's it. When women are unhappy, buddy, ain't no baby. Happy life, happy wife, happy life. Oh my goodness. So Abraham, one hell of a bad dude, says, I'm sorry, I got to send you guys. And so he sends Hagar and the first numero uno, his first son, whom I guarantee you he loved to death. He has to send her and that boy away. I'm sorry, you got to go. This is a psychic wound beyond that lives to this day. This is where you're drawing your double team, friend, where the inequities arrive. Right here. The Arabs You kick me out, man. Buddy, and it was because Abraham is such a blessed and gifted man. Why they're so attached to him, right? Well, they're kicked out. They're the number one son. They're kicked out of the house. They have never forgotten this wound. So here's the first son that was promised from Jesus that he has with Abraham and Sarah. They have this child. That's Isaac. And so the contention between Arabs and the Judeo-Catholic world is this boy right here. The Arabs say, no. The prize comes through Ishmael. And all the Judeo-Catholic world says, no. Bull junk. It comes through Isaac. There it is. There's your double team. That for me, that's the taser position. That's where you freeze that linebacker right there. It creates all the inequities. It comes between these boys, this Ishmael and Isaac. That's your problem. When they say peace in the Middle East, they say that apparently it's only going to come when the Antichrist shows up. This is the problem. How many of you can give an explanation? And I'm not trying to be accusational here, but honestly, how many can give an honest, inspired, somewhat informative argument? Why did radical Islam attack us on September 11th? I just would like you to share with me the motivation. Can you share with me at all what drove that? One of the most vicious attacks in world history. What was the motivation? And yet you're going to send. It's embarrassing, you guys. They call it the righteous wrath of the West. We don't even know why they fucking did it. A lot of people do, But how many Americans? Poll some people on the street. Let's see what kind of answers you get. Why'd they do it? Here's your double team. Ishmael and Isaac. So they say it's going to come. No. This is where there was a promise of his son that there would be a great blessing to humanity from his son. So Ishmael, the Arab, beautiful Hagar, the dude could get hot chicks. It was undeniable. Superfly chick. Sarah was so beautiful. Apparently, he had to lie to a king. Said, no, it's my sister. Please, he didn't want to be killed for the woman. And Hagar, smoke show, right? So that's how you have your Middle East conflict. You got the Arabs and so it was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because Jacob is the one who he got a new name, Israel. This is where it came from. This is where it is. Especially one way to look at it is, seriously, look at how Jesus has treated them. You're going to represent the Lord Almighty? Buddy, get ready. Get freaking ready. One of the first things when Jesus showed up, because I love history, usually it takes a real long time. At that time, it would take a long time to get an answer from Jesus. I asked him, I said, was the 6 million Jews in the Holocaust being murdered, was that in retaliation for the Jews killing you? And he didn't wait a beat. He goes, yep. So here, Abraham, this is it. If you want to be a great painter, if you were, Da Vinci or Van Gogh, you painted religious. These are the symbolic stuff in our guiding images in our history. Art connects us to God and our past. But here he is. He was told by Jesus, you go out here and you sacrifice. Yeah, Bob Dylan. I've never heard the song, but I read the lyrics. It was in a book by Kierkegaard, the philosopher Kierkegaard. It was like on the frontispiece. They quoted Dylan, his song. He says, Abraham, and God says to Abraham, next time I see you, you better, if next time I see you, if you haven't killed me a son, well, boy, you better run. And Abraham said to Jesus, well, where you want this killing done? Then the Lord said to Abraham, right out there on Highway 1. So here's finally, after all the grief, it's man's nature to drift from the Lord. All this grief Abraham and his wife had caused themselves and a whole another sector, the society. Now he's told, you will go sacrifice this boy to me. The big promise. Everything you've ever lived for, I want you to sacrifice it right now. So he's taking this blade, he's going to sacrifice. See, he's going, I think this is called Mount Moriah. This is no small deal. This would later be the exact place where Jesus, the real gift finally was unveiled. Jesus' blood was shed. That's where it's where he's nailed to a cross. You're going to kill me as son. These are symbols foreshadowing what's going to happen. At the very last, it's obvious I'm going to kill this boy. The story is they walked up and he says, well, Father, we're going up here to sacrifice. Where's the sacrifice? Well, son, whom I love so, so dearly. It's sort of a good news, bad news on that. Good news is we don't have to look far. The bad news is it's you. And when it's clear that he was going to do it, the Lord sends Gabriel to stop. There's a ram nearby. The ram is trapped in the bushes. Go grab the ram and sacrifice him to me. This is the center of the world. It's Arabs, Jews, Catholics. They all agree this is the center of the world. Okay? It is now, I think, England. It's called UTC, Universal Time Coordinated, or Zulu time. When every pilot that lands in every airport you speak English. It's the global language is English. And the time you use is UTC minus 5:45 or whatever. It's whatever the time is in London or Greenwich. The world is separated here. It used to be everything's supposed to be like Jerusalem. Right now it's Greenwich. And so you announce your time, UTC, which is Universal Time Coordinated, Greenwich time minus 5.5 hours or whatever it is. That's how you announce. Because if I say I'll be there at 5:30, well, shit, dude, are you talking where you just departed or where my time is Zulu time? What is Zulu? This is the center of the world. The Arabs agree on this, the Jews agree on this, and the Catholics agree on this. This is world history through my eyes. Here's Jerusalem. This is security back in the day was a giant wall. And so there was a giant temple, the cultural center, the center of Judeo life completely this is where the Spirit of God enters humanity and is dispensed all over the globe through the Jews and their temple. You'd have like we called a holiness. You have the back, everyone walks in, you quiet down. No more stories with the neighbor. You get closer in, it's Gentiles only. A little further, closer to the throne, Jews only. A little further, priests only. And then the chief priest is the only one, once a year, would go into the most holy place. They would tie a rope around the priest, tie a rope around him, and he would go in trembling, taking blood to sprinkle it on the Ark of the Covenant. You've seen the Raiders of the Lost Ark? That's the Ark of the Covenant. That comes from the Jews. That was in there. You're supposed to, I think it was you just sprinkled the blood on there. But this was a problem. This is one of the worst occupational hazards there could be. If you had unconfessed sin or there was an issue Jesus didn't want to accept your you would fall dead. When they had a problem, if a priest fell dead, you in there, man? What's going on? Well, they figured out how you answer that is you tie a rope around them. So if you fall dead, well, they pull your fat, unrepentant fanny out of there. And then they work on it. That's called the mercy seat of Christ. Right? And there's some lore to, I found this very interesting. I think it's unlikely. But it's an interesting, it helps you understand. When Jesus was crucified here, the three robbers, it was said that there was a lot of tunnels under Jerusalem, still is, that the Ark of the Covenant had been stashed underneath the place where he was, and that the blood, while Jesus was up on there on the cross, the blood had trickled down and seeped into through the soil and hit the mercy seat down there. I think that that's an unlikely thing, but it gives you a sense of what needs to happen. That blood, that unblemished blood, this is how Jesus was, we were ransomed by Jesus, only as, and only he can pull that off. But the Old Testament really is, it's just their laws. It's just, let me do it real fast. Here's a side right here. So this is the New Testament. This is a gift. Well, let's do a quick digression. Here's a Bible. It's a military Bible, guys. Look what the Lord had me put together for you. What do you think of that? It's a little dirty here. The point is, the Old Testament is all Jewish stuff, right? What's all Jewish? This represents Jewish history. What is the Bible, How can I sit through 20 years of preaching or whatever and not even know what the Bible is? This documents the history. This is a document of their history. The Jewish, it was a tribe out in Palestine, out in the Middle East. It's a tribe. This is the list of their histories and the laws passed down through, and the guidance passed through by their priests that would talk, the prophets that would talk with the Lord. That's what this is. Whether you believe there's a God or not, this is what this is. This you don't have to be a theist to understand. There is a village of people out in the Middle East. There were Jews. Abraham had relations with his wife Sarah, and they all typically have real curly hair and long noses. I heard a really funny, just to keep my audience enthused, heard a real interesting joke the other day. He says, maybe I shouldn't tell that joke. Never mind. Okay, never mind. Well, it's kind of funny. Anyway, this is a list of this is what our prophets, this is our history, this is the direction, this is us fleeing from Egypt, oppression. The Lord showed up, we went out, and it lists our follies. We decided we don't like prophets anymore. We'll go with the king, like the rest of the world. They have inferiority complex like everyone else. Well, we don't want prophets to wait on the Lord. We want kings we want to be like everybody else. He said, you ain't going to like them jumps. A king doesn't just take taxes. He takes young men and young women to serve. He needs servants. And then those boys, he's afraid they're going to nail my Sarah. So we have to geld them, So this is their history, right? And the laws that they've been given and how they ran. And one of the chief things that comes out of here is they were told demons or these false gods, they want sacrifice. Jesus needs obedience and to his will and to his laws. Sacrifice don't get them jumps. That's what it's like. I'd almost be willing to pay any tax to live a free life, whatever tax I have to pay a free life. But so they were to do sacrifice in the temple. There's been 2 temples in Jerusalem here. The prophets would say, you've gone away from what we've said. You are a people, you are to be a nation of priests for the rest of the world. You are different, you are set aside. You continue to drift towards their habits, doing their crap. And what happened was worse, was they started doing, a section of them started going, they went so far from the Lord, they went into child sacrifice to a god, a demon named Molech or something. This was practiced for, yeah. One of their biggest duties was to wait for the Messiah. He showed up on a, they're like, no, he's doing all these miracles. He fits the criteria. He come out of Bethlehem. The prophets say he's going to come out of, but strangely, it said he's going to be a suffering Messiah. The Jews didn't like that. That didn't sound fun. So they ignored Isaiah, 55 or whatever. He'll be a suffering Messiah. And they're like, well, that doesn't sound fun at all. So let's kind of ignore that part. Anyway, he'd done all these miracles. He'd been preaching for 3 years. It's 3 years of ministry. On a Sunday, he walks into Israel. No, he rides on a donkey that had never been ridden before. And they'd take palms, which is a sign of royalty. And they also welcome Hosanna or whatever it is in the name of, this is the son of David. It was going to be, the son of David was going to be the Messiah. And they all hailed him as the Messiah. This was the event that helped precipitate the tragedy that happened in the next following several days. So on Sunday, he comes into town. They're all they're laying it down so he can trot on on this roadside. The palm leaves, that's Palm Sunday. They had conspired by Wednesday night. I am guessing his fate was sealed. The leaders had been gathering secretly. How do we rid ourselves with this guy? You don't have much time. Everyone, it was on, I believe, wasn't it Passover? Passover was next Saturday or something? That's like CNN, you guys. Everyone is doing a pilgrimage in the Middle East. Everyone's going up to Jerusalem to get their sins forgiven. You put your hand on the ram, you transfer your sins on it, and then slaughter it, and the blood goes this, and those are the money changers, the currency changers, right? At the front doors, like they were charging you a fee. You come from wherever, Egypt. Well, you need a currency exchange right there. That's why Jesus was ticked off. He's like, this is supposed to be a house of worship. You turned it into a house of thieves, Yeah, it's basically how America works. It's a house of thieves. This is the way I view it. You essentially have everyone coming from all over the world, a massive pilgrimage, and he has just been accepted into Israel, and Jerusalem no less, as the Messiah, the son of King David. I don't even like talking about this. It is so heavy. It makes me very uncomfortable. Excuse me, please. Mother Mary, please help. Well, he's getting funny, and I just feel unpleasant. That's why I don't like talking about stuff. You have a situation, it's going to be like CNN or international news. Why? They didn't have the printing press. They didn't have that stuff. But you have everybody coming to town. They need to fix this problem before they're all hailing the new Jewish Messiah, who does not rule with an iron fist. He rules with mercy, compassion. Oh, you're nice with your neighbor? Come visit me when you're nice to your enemy. Don't the politicians here do that crap? He's talking new stuff. He's talking new jank. Ain't nobody even heard. Nobody really not even interested. Yeah, this sounds like a miserable life going forward. We need this problem solved before everyone gets here on Friday. And when you start conspiring with the enemy, you're in bed with demons, it will get much, much worse. Because the truth is, it worked. The crappy trial they gave him, it worked. He was arrested. Judas had betrayed him for 30. He's out in the Mount of Olives. That's where he prays. That's all they needed to know. We need him to get him in the middle of the night. Why? Because the people will go apeshit because they are absolutely certain that's who they've been waiting for. They seize him in the night. They try to get a trial done. They send him over to... now you have a jurisdictional error. A jurisdictional debate. Nobody wants. It's not my problem. It's your problem. It's not my problem. Nobody wants to ice this dude who, I don't want that on my hands. So, and the sons come up, right? Now you have, anyway, they finally get, what was it, Herod, who's the outpost of Rome, right? Rome is under what, Emperor Tiberius or something. The Jews were in a massive problem for a very, very long time. You do not want their problems becoming big. Then you have a problem back. You got to go visit. You're called back by the emperor. I call him back the ambassador. Why couldn't you put this problem down? So, but he sees somebody's getting this is skullduggery and this is dirty. So he says, after he saw that he's going to have a revolt on his hands, which creates a massive problem, he says, I see no fault with this man. He goes over and he washes his hands. They said, let his blood be on us then. They said that. It's in history. And if you're like, well, we don't trust your religious books, this and that, go read pretty much Josephus. Josephus has the same thing. And he was in bed with the Romans, So if you don't, you're like, well, I distrust. It says pretty much all the same stuff. This is how it blows up in their face. They end up condemning him to death. And so then he's put up on a cross. It's the very last thing you want. They wanted this done in night. He's disappeared. Hey, he's not coming back, this and that. We took care of it. What happened? He was no, you weren't there when when he went from, hey, let's peace, love, and happiness to where he started saying some stuff. So I'm sorry, but we had to take care of the process. I'm sorry you weren't there for it, but he's been dismissed. The worst thing happens. So now he's put up on a cross on Broadway. That's what criminals call Front Street, for everyone to watch. Now you have, that's why I say it's like CNN. You have all the pilgrims coming from all over the world for Passover to get their sins forgiven and observe this holy day of the Almighty. And now the King of the Jews, now everyone gets to see the Jews' sins laid bare for everyone. This is what it's been about the whole time. We're not about God's laws. This is not what we want. Like they say, your sins will become, and it's a old Jewish proverb, your sins will be known like the noonday sun. Everybody's going to be able to see it. This is, a lot of Jews don't go by this. This is the record that was kept by his apostles in the prophets after Jesus was raised 3 days later. He kind of gave him a bit of a trivia or a conundrum when he says, he was standing out the temple and they came for him there. So he goes, who gives you the authority to start throwing shit? He started ripping the table. He said, you've turned this into this is supposed to be a house of worship. You turned it into a den of thieves. Get the frick. He started throwing tables and stuff. He goes, who put you in charge? He goes, buddy, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to destroy this temple, and in 3 days, I'll raise it back up. And nobody understands that. They were talking about his temple. That's what we're human beings. You're a temple for the Holy Spirit. He's talking about himself. I will destroy this temple. In 3 days, I will raise it back up. Some of them actually figured it out. That's why they said, we need to put Roman guards around the tomb after he's dead. There's a secret had been going. He'd been saying, after 3 days, I'm back. And so they put the Roman seal, on if anybody touches that, it means you're dead. And then the guards, they were sleeping, and when they woke up, they're like, seal's broken. And anyway, this is the record of the new church after. What's interesting here, what I pay attention to here is, they were told several times with the Jews, if you continue, there was a lot of prophets that come, if you continue to turn away from the Lord's jumps, his laws and the observances and the directives he's been giving you, you'll be cut down. And so the first one, who's the first king? I'm sorry, you guys. Was it Nebuchadnezzar? He brought, and here's Jerusalem. I think this is the siege of Jerusalem under, you see the guard, or the Persians, I think, maybe? I don't know. That probably in the back is going to be the temple right there. No? Is it that one there? So the first one was built by Solomon. So there was two. The first was a massive army. It's bad because what a siege is, they have to close off a siege. They have to close off all. Like if they were to seize this, they got somebody in here with like me. Well, they do what they can to get everyone out. I'd be cornered. And one of the first things they do is they cut power. Eventually, they would try to cut water. And eventually, depending, they don't know, does he have 55-gallon drums of water in there? Does he have huge stores of grain? How long can we hold him out, you know? That's what you have there. So a siege, what usually would go on, a city's resources were usually depleted in 6 to 7 months. So you have the city gates that would close. What you try to do to rouse a siege, can you get this was I think the best way. Can you get somebody out, sneak them out over the fence and say the Assyrians or whomever is assembled outside our effing gate. We have maybe 3 months of food left and food and water. And can you make it to, the Jordan, or can you make it to Lebanon? They need to get to an ally. Can you bring an army against this army? Or even better, the Egyptians or whomever, make it up, have assembled outside the gate. Can you attack the Egyptians' hometown to draw them, so they have to meet that, so they have to check that advance we're getting perilously low on resources. This is what happens. And one of the prophets, I think, said in the Bible, he says, look, man, the Bible is just, what is the Bible? It's a collection of writings, I think the Bible makes it sounds mystified. It's there's 66 total different 66 different books here. 66 essays or whatever. So it's called essays, 66 essays. A lot of them are called epistles, which just means a letter. So 66 essays or letters that tell you, like, if IBM were to say, this is the history of IBM, this is our Bible. Well, it would include letters to, they were involved in, they were international business machines was servicing the Germans, and this is, we got in some shady stuff here. Talk about the good days, the bad days, and right? You have internal documents. Well, this letter was sent to so-and-so saying, I think we should pull back from our investments here and reinvest our time here. If you did a whole compendium of IBM, well, it would be, their collection, you could call it a Bible, or what the Latin would be corpus. It's just a body of work. Just try to demystify it, Like that, this Bible here is all New Testament except for 2 Old Testament. It's just a new collection. This Bible here is New Testament plus the Psalms and Proverbs of the Old Testament. All right? You were told, pal, if you guys you can't turn this around. It's going to get so bad you're going to eat your own kids. Well, that prophecy, in fact, at that time they may have known exactly what you mean to be saying. You're going to eat your own kids. There'll be an army raised against you, where it'll go you in 6 to 7 months. You can start running. What happens in a situation like that is you first turn to household pets. That's what they do in North Korea. They eat the dogs and stuff. That's not beneath them in any way. That's probably high. That's oysters and caviar. That's high living. Well, then you turn to the vermin, like the rats and this and that. In the Civil War, well, this is cow, or maybe goat, or you would turn to eating this as flesh. If you get that hungry, if you've gone everywhere looking for food, Well, eventually you get so damned hungry. Well, yeah, you ate the chinchilla. Well, little Isaac always liked you, bud. I imagine you go with the youngest, right? I don't know, maybe the oldest. I think you go with the youngest kid. I don't know. These are difficult, and you make those you make those decisions in a desperate way, and then you have to, of course, cook your own kid. We have that today. They had to cook each other here. This is Moby Dick. They had to cook each other. They drew straws, and they're beautiful guys out of New England, man. Beautiful guys, like had to make terrible decisions. They had to draw straws. Here's one of the things you'll notice about here is like our speech has become so fucking lazy. Our speech in this country is so lazy. You wouldn't believe how beautiful it is. Just 200 years ago, listen to this guy talk. Look how beautiful he is. Owen Chase. So he had a kind of a rivalry with the captain. One guy, anyway. Eloquent. So you have to eat your own children. Like I said, so there was the first one. He says, and then you take it, once they puncture through, it takes 7 months usually or so. And then they kill, rape, and plunder. And then they take everyone that's still remaining and they take you slave back to, further out in the Middle East or wherever it was. And that let's kind of try to wrap up. I need to get dressed and get ready. Here's the second one. This was under Vespasian and Titus. This is a famous relief on their wall, an archway going into Rome. This is the candelabra from the temple. This is the second temple that was destroyed. There's been 2 temples on the top there. This one, and now then they destroyed it. So there's twice. He says, you don't do it. These instruments from the prophets, these are all prized stuff. When they went in there trying to find the Ark of the Covenant, they went into who was it? Just walks right in. He goes, I'm not afraid to walk in there. From Rome. He just walks right in. And the Holy of Holies was empty. The Ark of the Covenant was gone. We believe we're pretty confident it's in Axum, Ethiopia. If they do not have, it's called the St. Mary's of Axiom, Ethiopia. If it is not there, I'll tell you this, they believe they have it. They have been guarding something in there for 800 years. When it's at only one priest is allowed to tend to it. When he dies, they take his cloak, his big jacket, and they hang it up here. The next guy's chosen, he goes, when he dies, they hang his up next to it. They have 800 years of jackets. It was believed there's tunnels underneath the Temple Mount. It was spirited out of there. And you have the kind of that romantic story of the Nazis trying to find it to harness war. Good for them to be, that's just how the Germans think. But it's unbelievably dangerous power. I really don't like to, it's heavy stuff. This continues to be the trouble to this day. Do you understand? So 30 years after Christ, it's like, well, we don't need this stuff anymore. When Jesus was crucified on the cross, please help. The curtain was torn in two. It's just like this giant, huge royal fabric just ripped right down the middle. Boulders started cracking, opening, and it was darkness in the middle of the day. One of the guards says, "Surely this man was holy, man. This is nuts." Dark in the middle of the day, and it's just so it blew up in their faces. This is what you guys have been about the whole time. Jesus said before they killed him, he says, you tell me which prophet in this Jerusalem has not attempted to kill. So let's relate it to today's history. This is 30 years out, AD 70. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord 70. 30 years after Christ, Vespasian and his son Titus, the Roman emperors, come up to Jerusalem. They said, we're done with this. We are done. We are done. Just like when it happens, when he says, guys, we have had it. They got real German on the place. They systematically went area to area, town by town, township by township, till they got in Jerusalem, and took all their goodies, destroyed it. They did not get this land back until the conclusion of World War II, after the Germans said, we're done with. The Germans also said, we are done with these Jews. That's what I'm saying. You don't understand calumniation. The devil will always, Jews are radically misrepresented. Can you tell me what a Jew is? Can you tell me what a Jew is? And can you tell me why Arabs attacked the United States of America? Then we can sit down to coffee, We dictate world's affairs, and you can't answer those two questions. You're going to want to beat Nick Saban, but you can't solve this thing you're not going to talk about the thing that happens on the front line with the nose guard and how he has to. You have to address this. If you do not address this, what are you doing? You're doing like the Jews. You're going on pretending, hey, we're going to keep pressing forward and hope it never blows up in our fucking face. You can't tell me what a Jew is, and you can't tell me why we were attacked by Arabs. The truth is, you don't want to know. Give me anything other than God. Right? Right. But that's a perfect understanding of how we end up in this situation today. How we got ourselves here. We said we have to do something for Israel and the Jews. So at the conclusion of the war in 1945, World War II, we can't let this happen to them again. They have no homeland. They haven't had it since Christ died. Over 1900 years, they haven't had a land. Let's give it back to them. In 1948, we said, you can have Israel back. Well, here you go. I've always dubbed this woman the most beautiful woman in the world. She is now the number 2 most beautiful woman in the world after my mother. This won a Nobel or a Pulitzer, this photograph. The war for Jerusalem continues to this day. The Arabs have. I'm sorry, guys. I don't pay too much. It's like you got the Dome of the Rock or something. So it's a 12. I know it's a 12-acre parcel. You got the Dome of the Rock, and there's no Jewish. And I think there is in the Book of Revelation, John of Patmos. I think and I don't know this for myself, so maybe it's the very last book. I might be misinterpret, but it's something I heard third hand. So it's Book of Revelation. He said apparently I think there will be at the end of the world, which it doesn't matter really to you. Let me argue that also. The end of the world doesn't really matter to you. And I mean that seriously, but I think there's supposed to be a final and third temple. They will be splitting. So the Muslims that's considered, the gift given to Abraham. And the Jews. Well, then they're like, well, no. Bullshit. It didn't come from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It came from Abraham and Ishmael. And down our line, that's them jumps is all ours. I think that's what you have with the Crusades going back and forth. So the Muslims still have, that's the center of the world to almost all the world. That 12 acres on the Temple Mount. That's where the temple is. The temple's been burned down the last time by Vespasian and Titus, the Romans. So you have the Muslims are up there. But the Jews will pray at the Western Wall. It's like the base that's still standing. It's like the foundation. They pray at that wall. Great violence still occurs in that area. It's horrifying. October 7 is something. And we still, because we want nothing to do with God, we pretend like that's not an unbelievably horrifying thing. We did a video on it. There's some footage that came out of there, which is unbelievably horrifying. They just walk into civilian areas with machine guns and start shooting men, women, and children. It's just unbelievably fucking disgusting. But we don't want to know that problem. Just like the same reason you don't want to know why exactly did they attack us on September 11? Because it leads back to this guy, Jesus Christ. Right? It's the same thing with me, you guys. That's why I think I've been given this privileged position, because nobody knows better than I do that you really choose Jesus last. That's why I think, partly why I get to do this, is because I'll never be confused on that point. I chose Jesus last. So let's just keep moving, okay? Also, why does the book of Revelation really doesn't, unless you're really at the end, maybe it does apply to you, but because you're going to die anyway. The end of the world is coming for you in 50, 60 years anywho, man. We don't even talk about, My point is, this is the center of the world. When Burry says, Michael Burry saying, I'm looking for a bubble, and these are the markers, I'm looking for a bubble, right? Nick Saban said, well, I open up the line this way. Now, this is what I look for, and it's what most of the world looks for. This is the center of the world. This is where the mismatch is called. This is where the inequities begin and end. And like Jesus said, this is always going to be a problem, and this will always be a thorn in the side of humanity, what you've done here. Did I say this is a Jewish woman being displaced by, they asked her later, so the photographer won the prize. She said, how do you feel about, what do you think about this photograph? She says, I couldn't hate it more. I can't stand it. Why would I like that? It's the Israelis, it's Jews displacing Jews from their own land. Because some prime minister somewhere struck a deal with some Arabs. Okay, we'll give up this slice for, this is the inequities on the front line. This is the nose guard who's trying to draw a double team. We don't want to address this problem because we don't want God, and that's our fallen nature. And so really, when Jesus steps in, it's him delivering the medicine, right? And medicine really sometimes is not a happy experience, right? And we have gotten, Is there anything else that, we covered the pretty girl. I really wanted people to see it is the prettiest girl in the world. They did an interview with her later. She's a lot younger than she looks. That looks like a middle-aged woman. This is the way she's dressed down and such. She's like, excuse me. I just think that that's obviously a woman of conviction who is not afraid to, I don't know. There's a beauty in this ugliness. This is, you separate the world also in two different, the Greeks said that beauty is holiness. So does America. You're not going to argue with me on that, will you? The Greeks and the Americans say that beauty is holiness. It was the Jews who said, holiness is beauty. Merry Christmas.